Hello everybody, my name is Diana Simmonds and I'm a writer and a columnist for Curve magazine in America, and I'm really thrilled, quite by accident, to be sitting here with Cari Hunter. I'm a big fan of Cari Hunter's, and this is her new book, which is actually warm off the presses. It's my copy today, and it's called No Good Reason, and you may well know the rest of her books. But this is Cari Hunter, and I want to say thank you for talking to me.
No, you're very welcome.
And I've read the first 2 chapters of this because I read it on the Bold Strokes website, but I'm really dying to get into it. And one of the reasons that I was talking to Cari much earlier for Curve magazine was because we were talking about the difference between biscuits and cookies. Biscuits and cookies. Because you were saying, let's talk about Englishisms versus Americanisms.
I just had my edits back from my editor, who's American, and No Good Reason is very British. It's set in England, back in the north of England in the Peak District. So all the language is British, and she was slightly worried that it might be a little bit too British in its terminology in places, specifically with food. So she'd asked me to change some of the more unfamiliar food, which led to a discussion on my Facebook page as to what foods Americans would actually recognise. So
and at this point I joined in.
Basically everybody was chipping in, and I don't know how long it went on for, hundreds and hundreds of comments. And so the upshot was that quite a lot of Americans recognised quite a lot of English biscuits, and the ones that they didn't recognise, they were quite happy to go away and Google. So where a few little bits and pieces of food got chopped out or changed, you know, the more obscure.
So what do you think was obscure?
What did I change? I changed...
I mean, you didn't change hobnobs.
Hobnobs stayed in. Hobnobs, you're going to have to Google those if you don't know what hobnob is. That's a biscuit. I changed
Not a cookie, it's a biscuit.
changed barm cake, because even some English people won't know what a barm cake is.
I don't.
Well, it's a bread roll.
Oh.
But
how do you spell it?
B-A-R-M. Barm cake.
What's
so up here...
Is it a northern thing?
It's a northern thing. So it's one of those regional things that everybody's got a different word for. You go into a chippy in here and you ask for a chip barm, you'll get chips on a bread roll. You go into a chippy in Coventry, where I went to university, and ask for a chip barm, and they look at you, they wouldn't know what you were talking about. If you ask for a chip batch, you'd get chips on a bread roll. So it's just one of those words that's got a different meaning.
How regional terms actually still exist, don't they?
So that got changed. I think that's a pickled egg instead. But there wasn't much else.
Americans have pickled eggs?
Well, no, but you can kind of work out what a pickled egg is.
I suppose.
I hope so, anyway.
Yes. Well, to me, a pickled egg is revolting.
Oh, I've never had one. I've never had the pleasure, but I know that we do sell them in chippies. So.
Right. Okay. So when you got into hobnobs and various things, and I was advocating that you don't change things too much, if at all, that people can actually go and look for things if they want to know, which I think is important.
Yeah, I think I kind of went with... I did kind of go with that, I think. Yeah. I mean, it's not difficult these days to Google. And I kind of like, you know... I was saying before to you, you know, if you've got a book and you're setting it somewhere and you're giving it a regional flavour and you've got regional specifics in it, then using too many generalisations, I think, would lose something of its regional flavour. It would make it too bland. You know, you can't use universal language for everything. You've got to be specific.
No. I mean, one of the things that drives me nuts is when somebody writes, they had a quick breakfast. Because I think... either don't mention it if it's that quick,
say what they've had.
Or say what they've had, because I immediately want to know, what did you have for breakfast? What is a quick breakfast?
I'm with you, yeah.
So for you, what's a quick breakfast?
A quick breakfast for me, brown flakes with raisins and toast and tea. That would be my breakfast.
Right. Is that a general one? What would be a big treat?
A big treat, fry up.
Ah.
Fry up bacon, eggs, sausage, black pudding, beans, mushrooms, toast and tea. Yeah, my dad used to make the best fried bread. I think that's a thing of a past though. the fried bread.
Yeah. Do you think
in
that's...
terms of health?
Ah, yes. Yeah, well, I was talking to you earlier about my ideas about health.
I think if you're having a fry-up though, you might as well fry your bread.
Precisely. Well, what is the point?
Definitely.
Yes. I mean, having, as I said, baked potato crisps because they're supposed to be healthy, rather than fried potato.
You go into a chippy, you're not going to get diet chips.
I hope not. No, it's just disgusting, isn't it? This new book is, as you said, it's set very much in England.
It's set in the same area that Snowbound was set.
Yeah, and a fantastic cover, beautiful cover.
Beautiful.
And I think it's either the Holocaust or it's a sunset.
It's
Yes.
I think it's a sunset with a bit of foreboding. We didn't want to make it too pretty.
No,
the original cover I got was actually, it was a little bit too bright and sunny for the book, so
well,
we gave it a little bit of shade.
I'm not sure that people would expect sunny naturally from you.
It's not something I really do well.
No, but you do something else very well, which is completely be gripping, thrilling.
I tend to have quite a lot of mayhem.
Authentic. I mean, very deeply authentic. I think no matter where you set it, because one of them was set in Maine, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, Tumbledown was Maine.
Yes, and are you familiar with Maine?
No, not at all. I just researched. I think the internet is a wonderful thing for authors these days. You know, you can set your books pretty much wherever you want over the world. And
but she said, I read Tumbledown before I knew much about you. And I'd spent time in Maine, and I thought, oh, this is really interesting. I've never heard of this American author before. It turns out not only are you not American, but you've never been there.
No, but I do. I mean,
I
would be insulted if somebody wrote a book in the Peak District and got it all wrong. So, you know, I don't want to steal somebody else's place where they live and get it all wrong.
So did you think you were being a bit bold or a bit daring, or were you scared?
Oh yeah. For that
reason. Did you get anything wrong?
I basically didn't want to balls it up. Well, I made my own town up, which gave me license to create, and that gives you more leeway. But in terms of the geography and the food, and there's a bit of a road trip in the latter third of the book, so that was all the places there, the bigger cities that were mentioned there, and the travel times and sunset times and language and everything, geography, and you know what it looks like. You can Google image these days, so there's no excuse really for getting it wrong.
No, but I find it amazing actually how often someone will write about a place, and they'll write about a garden, and they'll have flowers blooming that aren't
either right for that place or right for that time of year.
Yeah, you'll have a spring flower and an autumn flower blooming together, and it immediately jars, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
So, do you when you're doing that kind of thing, do you think, well, that might be a trip too far, so I'll leave it out, or do you?
If I'm not sure about something, then yes, I will either get a way around it or I'll leave it out completely. But if I can research it, I mean, the crime sort of aspect of these books, you know, I've tried to. This one is more of a kind of crime procedural, which Tumbledown was heading towards, I think, with the way that story went. But this one very much so. You know, I've got friends who work in the police force. Luckily, with being a paramedic, you tend to cross over the forces quite a lot. So I'll ask them, and I'll try and get things right. You know.
Well, I mean,
I don't want to do things wrong, because it pisses me off when I read a crime book and somebody does something completely stupid and you just think, well, that'd be thrown out of court. That wouldn't get past the CPS. That would, you know, why have you not got outer forensic layers on? You know, you just contaminating everything. It just, you know, it really annoys me. So.
Well, it throws you into the situation of thinking, I don't believe any of this.
Yeah, well,
doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the end of the book, really.
Exactly. So.
Tell us about this one.
This one is set in the Peaks. It is the first of a series.
Now, this is the Peak District.
This is the Peak District, yeah. It's not far from where I live.
Which is pretty foreign for a lot of southerners.
Yeah, it's kind of lowish hills, lots of ancient stones, very beautiful, quite bleak.
You spend a lot of time up there, don't you?
I walk up there quite a lot, yes. So one of my lead characters likes fell running, which basically is going up and running over the hills.
It's insanity.
That's his insanity.
Yes. Running up and down hills.
Running across the tops of them, basically. But yes, far more energetic than anything that I would do. I would hike up them. It's a crime thriller. So each book in this series is going to have a main sort of crime that forms the plot element, and then the character and cast their stories will develop in the background. So it's got the same sort of lead, the same lead characters in it.
But as well as the crime itself, I always find your settings and where you put them to be rich.
Well, the settings,
again, authentic.
Yeah, I mean the setting's crucial for this one because of where the crime occurs. So it occurs kind of at the bottom of a set of rocks, very much like the ones on the cover.
I see.
So it's got Sanna Jensen, who is the lead detective in it, and her best friend Meg, who is the doctor. And they're best friends, which is something that I've never done. I've always done stranger meets stranger and falls in love. So it's been really nice to write two women who know each other and know each other well and have grown up together. So you've got shared history and in-jokes and family, and that's just been brilliant for me to write. I've really enjoyed that, and actually taking the time to go into their background and give them a background, which is something that's kind of trickier to do in a standalone romance, I think. You know them, but you never really scratch the surface of who the characters are. You don't have time, which is why I liked... Well, I didn't really pitch this to Bold Strokes as a series. I wrote this one and then asked whether I could carry it on, but I'd written it hoping that they would say yes. So there's more depth, I think, to the background and to the characters and to their relationships.
Some people have criticised you, I've noticed, for the violence. What do you think about that? I mean, it's not gratuitous to my way of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I've always written books where the violence has hurt, and I think that's quite important to do. You know, if you're going to write a violent story, it's got to have an impact, and it's got to have after effects, and you know, some kind of result for the characters. You know, if they get punched, they bleed. They don't get up and shake it off and laugh about it 5 minutes later. You know, if they get hurt, it hurts, because, you know, I work as a paramedic, you know, so I see
you
that.
You see
I
the
see
results,
that all
don't
the, you know, I see that all the time. So these, you know, if I shoot a character, they're going to limp for a while, they're going to bleed out, you know. I think this one isn't as violent. I think there's violence and bad stuff that happens in it, but a lot of it happens off page, and you see the results and you see the after effect and the aftermath as, you know, just how it affects the characters. A lot of the time it's not happening to the leads, so, you know, it's how they investigate it and deal with the victims of it, which is a bit different for me.
Is it too soon to ask you what you want to do next?
Well, I'm writing the third one in this series at the moment. Book 2 is already done. This one's been a while coming to a release date. So in the time that it took between this one and Tumble Down, I've written the second one, which is Cold to the Touch, and that's out in December, which is
This coming December?
This coming December, so I've got 2 out within about 8 months, and I've started the third one.
So will that be the end of this lot, or will you?
I have no idea. It depends whether people keep reading them, I think. I'm not contracted. I think it'll just be a book by book basis. As long as people are interested, they might let me keep writing them. So.
Well, look, I do hope you keep writing them, and I do
keep
hope
writing
you
something.
keep reading them, because I think what you're doing is really, really splendid. I love them. I think they're really good. So this one, everybody, No Good Reason, Cari Hunter, out any minute now. You can't have mine. Cari, thank you so much for talking.
You're very welcome. Thank you.